Hi Dixons, I'm Tara Evans, Primary Trust Assistant Principal and English Lead at Dixons Trinity Chapeltown. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you haven't done so already, do subscribe to our channel, use the like function and comment below to tell us which episodes have been most useful for you or what you would like to see on the channel next. In the last video, we discussed the difference between students' vocabulary breadth and depth and how they both play an important role in reading. This is the second video in our three-part mini-series focusing on vocabulary instruction. In this video, we will look more closely at vocabulary breadth and how we can use implicit vocabulary teaching to improve our students' breadth of vocabulary. We need to introduce students to a large number of words, especially through wide reading, and use implicit vocabulary instruction to reinforce. This will increase students' passive vocabulary. In his book, The Knowledge Deficit, Hirsch claims that most of our vocabulary acquisition occurs indirectly. Therefore, implicit vocabulary instruction is important as it increases the likelihood that students will remember a word they come across during their reading. In their book, Reading Reconsidered, Doug Lemov and colleagues suggest 4 approaches to implicit vocabulary instruction, which can be implemented in different combinations. The first approach is referred to as selective neglect. When we are teaching vocabulary as it is encountered, it is important that we strike the right balance between vocabulary teaching and students' continuing comprehension and engagement with the text. Stopping every other sentence to define a word is likely to act as a distraction. With this in mind, we need to choose which words are worth teaching and which are worth neglecting. Words we may choose to neglect may be archaic, obscure, or very domain-specific. Neglecting doesn't always mean we ignore them. We might choose to give a brief categorization of a word rather than a full definition. The second approach is pronounce. This is when you reinforce decoding by asking students to repeat your pronunciation of a new word. You might choose to use this when a definition is not required or when you think the students will recognize the word when it is correctly pronounced. The third approach is drop in a definition. This is when you encounter a word that you think is worthy of defining using an age-appropriate definition. You may use call and response to reinforce the definition, or students may write a note of the definition in the margin. You may also use a picture to help students remember these definitions. The fourth approach is define and practice. This should be used for the most important words. The teacher provides a definition of the word, then follows this up with questions for practice and application. In this clip, you will see a Year 6 class reading A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. You will see how the class teacher, Lois, uses these implicit vocabulary approaches when encountering unfamiliar or unknown words in the text.
Yesterday, we finished reading stave 1 of A Christmas Carol, and we're going to start reading stave 2 today. Get your finger ready on the top of page 27, where it says, when Scrooge awoke. I set
You bet.
Pick up for me, Hope.
When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark. Looking that literally out bed, he was scarcely.
Mighty Newton, scarcely.
Scarcely.
Year 6, there's a tricky word in that paragraph. Find the word endeavouring and put your finger on it. Endeavouring means to try to do something. Tell your partner, what does endeavouring mean?
Endeavouring means to try to do something.
What was Scrooge endeavouring to do? What was Scrooge endeavouring to do? Track. Sajid.
Scrooge was endeavouring to look in his bedroom.
Good. Scrooge was endeavouring to look through his room. He was finding it difficult though. Why was he finding it difficult? Why was he finding it difficult? Track. Any Abbasi.
Because it was too dark. You finding it difficult to look around his room because it was too dark.
Brilliant. He was finding it difficult to look around his room because it was too dark. Now, when he was looking around his room, it's described that he was doing it with ferret eyes. That just means that his eyes were small. Here's a picture of a ferret to show you those eyes are small. Okay, let's get our finger ready on the next paragraph where it says, to his great astonishment, pick up for me, Abubakar. He touched the spring.
The touch's spring got this repeated secret. This most preposterous flop. Its rapid little post.
Pick up for me, Fatima.
Scrooge went to bed again and thought it over and over and over, and could make nothing of it. The more he thought, the more perplexed he was, and the more he endeavoured not to think, the more he thought.
There's that word again, endeavoured. What does endeavour mean? What does endeavour mean? What does endeavour mean? Track, Josh.
To do something.
Good. Endeavour means that we are going to do something. At this point in the story, Scrooge is endeavouring to try his best. He's really trying to ignore the clock because the clock is wrong and it's making him feel anxious. So he's really trying not to think about it. He spoke before the hour bell sounded, which it now did with a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy one. Melancholy. That means sad or gloomy. I think we should write that definition on our work. Get your pencil ready. We are going to write that it was sad or gloomy. Underline our word. Sad or gloomy. I set.
You bet.
Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. Not the curtains at his feet, nor the curtains at his back, but those to which his face was addressed. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge, starting up into a half recumbent, that means he's half sitting up, half lying down, attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them as close to it as I am now to you.
In this video, the teacher used a combination of implicit vocabulary approaches. When planning this reading lesson, she thought carefully about which words were worth defining and practicing and which were worth neglecting. This is especially important when reading a challenging text like A Christmas Carol. For example, Lois chose to define and practice endeavour as this word appears twice in the extract, whereas she chose to neglect the word repeater as it was sufficiently clear from the context that this is part of a clock. When used effectively, these approaches to implicit vocabulary instruction help to increase the likelihood that students will recognise and remember a word they encounter during reading. In the next video, we will explore explicit vocabulary instruction and how this can be used to increase students' vocabulary depth.